Hi.
Hi, Glenn. What are you up to, Glenn?
Hey?
What are you up to? How are you doing?
I can't hear you. Talk louder into the phone.
Oh, I said, what are you up to and how are you doing?
I'm just doing what I do every day. Feed the goats.
Feed the goats?
Feed the chickens. Feed the cats. I'm their servant.
Yeah. You seem to be a creation servant, too.
Yeah. I had a visit yesterday.
Oh, really? By who?
Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
What? Was it good or bad?
Well, they called me up and they said, we'd like to come and see you. It was a woman, French accent, and her name, Anik, A-N-I-K.
Mm-hmm.
Friend, Ami.
Yeah.
In any event, she said, we're investigating you.
What?
I said, it's about time. And she said it's because of a letter you sent to people in government that is about mass destruction and killing of millions of people, including deputy ministers and civil servants and politicians per se.
Mm.
I said, well, obviously you don't understand the finer points of the English language. Since if you read the letter, you would know that it's not a threat, it's a warning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I knew, like, something like that, like, they think you're going to actually have something to do with that. One man.
And all of a sudden, I'm being accused by somebody in government, I guess,
mm-hmm.
that doesn't like what I'm doing. So they called me up. So they said, we'd like to come out. I said, you can come at any time. So about 2.5 hours later, a car, 4x4, drives into the driveway. Out comes a tall black guy, probably in his early 30s,
Mm-hmm.
about 6'1", 6'2", I guess, and a white woman, both speaking French to each other. So I suspect that the guy was Haitian.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe on training with the RCMP, because they're doing a training stint there for Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, come on into my office, and I let him out into the field up front. And she looked at the display, and beside the display that Danny saw when he was here is the big raft that I'm building,
Mm-hmm.
with a sign on it that says blind thrust raft. Underneath the raft are goats tied at each corner, type of thing. And I said, that's my bank account. As you can see in the other display, politicians have kind of looted the economies of all the countries of the world. There's nothing left in there. But in the small safe, you have some eggs there. That's symbolic of genetic engineering. But the big safes are empty of money. And in the future, those with goats will survive. Those with money will die.
Isn't that how it always was? The ones that lived in the mountains, the goat herders?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So across at the bottom of the raft it says, Assembly of Independent Canadians. And I said, so what are you here for? And she says, oh, by the way, I reread your letter and I can see that it's not a threat. It's a warning. I said, well, you might have gone down in history as the first people to arrest Noah.
Yeah.
I said, can you imagine being in a theater and you see somebody lighting a fire under the seats and you yell fire and you get arrested for yelling fire in a burning theater?
Yeah.
He says, I see that everything here is a symbol. Yeah, I said, you have a symbol of Ma Bell, symbol of Mother Nature, symbol of Mother Superior. But mind you, they're just the fronts.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to keep that in mind.
So anyways, within the period of about a half an hour to 45 minutes or so, they looked at the display and listened to me tell them I could talk to them for a year, but they probably wouldn't understand. The best thing they could do is to find somebody in the RCMP who knows anything about coding, and I'd be prepared to spend some time with that individual. At the same time, I had Jennifer on the phone, and Jennifer said, let me speak to them. And I said, well, hang on. So she says something about how I was the most honest guy she had ever met. And I said, Jenny, you're prejudiced.
Yeah, I'll say that.
You're my wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she had a little chat with the girl, and immediately the other guy, I guess he's Haitian, he leaned over and pushed the officer on the hand and said, hey, I got an appointment. We've got to go. He had an appointment, I don't know, but 1:20, I think he said.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked if they had brought a warrant for my arrest, and she said something to the effect of, no, not right away, which leaves kind of hanging when.
Yeah.
I said I would appreciate it if I could be arrested so that we could, in fact, go through the court system and expose how the RCMP's brass management are corrupt and how they protect the people that are about to destroy North America. And I've been trying to tell you that since the late 1980s, but because of the power of your people, they've been able to hide behind the Ontario Provincial Police. They always use them as their getaway car.
Yeah.
So,
why do you think they chose it this time right now?
Eh?
Why do you think they chose this time?
Well, they're working towards a date certain. Everybody out there has a date in mind. people who are in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pope last night, for the first time in history, backed up his 12 o'clock midnight mass to 10 o'clock so that it would be on the 24th instead of on the 25th. He claimed that it was because of his age and the fact that he has to do a second mass on Palatine Hill to St. Anastasia in the morning. St. Anastasia, according to the searching that Jenny has done, was not a Christian. And the Mass is basically devoted to paganism. So it's all of these places in Rome are built on pagan ground in order to preserve the ground so that nobody will go and destroy it. They build Christian churches on there, but when they celebrate in there, it's basically a celebration to the pagans.
Well, isn't that all? I mean, Catholicism is just.
I can't hear you.
Isn't that all what that Catholics, that Catholic religion? Isn't it just paganism veiled?
I still can't hear you.
Isn't that all what the Catholic religion is? Like,
yeah,
isn't it just
Vatican
paganism
and the 7 hills of Rome?
It's just paganism.
They're just a cover.
Yeah.
For Asian paganism. If you look at the word Anastasia, it's arsol, anis, from Asia. The arsol
isn't that like
from Asia.
A drug or something like that?
Yeah.
And that's like
you got to remember what I said the last time as well, is that the Chinese dynasty, the first dynasty called Ming, was created by a family, the father of which was Gun, and the son was Yu, and they were both dam builders and trying to control the dams, control with dams the flooding that was happening in China. And Gun was not successful because he built earthen dams, whereas Yu was more successful and he added diversions so that when there is a surplus of water, there's a runoff tunnel leading someplace else, and they were able to bring water and irrigate places that didn't have any water. And that's what the Three Gorges Dam is in China.
There's this Asian and it's like an Asian.
You're mumbling again, Jared.
There's an Asian show, right? It's like a cartoon, animated show, and it's called Gundam. I don't know if that's a link to that.
Well, you know that this property is shaped like a gun.
Yeah.
And that links it originally to Burgundy in France. But if you look at who was controlling France out of Europe at the beginning, they were all French. The Vietnam War was fought by Americans, but the guys who set it up were French. And that's where they had all of the meetings to end the war, was in France.
Yeah, I read that. I read something similar to that you were saying.
Now,
that
France
the shit store,
is basically
they store
able to Germany's Cain. Cain
is
the
Frankenstein.
builder, France is the destroyer. And their links are to the media.
Yeah.
The media, of course, includes religion.
Yeah, you were saying that. You said, Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Basically, Germany and France. France and Germany.
At the beginning, the whole place was called Frankland.
Yeah.
And it got split up into many houses of God, Germany, manager. Managers are linked to that term, builders. And on the other side, gall for jail, the original word for jail, basically links it to coprolite, the police, coppers, and the penny, which is the symbol of the Virgin. And you always honor Abel when you talk to someone who is not copper, someone who is in politics is honorable.
Judges and stuff.
Somebody who's a judge, somebody who's higher up, doesn't get his hands dirty by work. Of course, they call sitting behind a desk listening to your complaints work. But if you look at the Canadian dollar coin, it's a copper-colored coin. And it's called the loonie, so that means anybody that's in that range is crazy. And then you have the toonie, and the copper part shrinks somewhat and gets surrounded by a nickel-coated part. So it's basically like the human being goes into background, the male goes into background, surrounded by a Neanderthal medulla that's shiny and bright, around it made out of nickel, which is like bike and Ike and Dyke and all those things. And if you measure a toonie against a loonie, they are the same size coin with one exception. Only the rim around the edge makes the difference in the size. So that's symbolic of the female aspect being simply veneer or porcelain around the coin.
If I remember correctly, I think the toonies, when you look at them, it's like a circle inside the middle, right? Like
copper circle inside a nickel circle surrounded by a rim.
So what's that that the copper one in the middle represent? The copper circle in the middle?
Yeah.
What does that represent?
Coprolite. Brown shit.
Oh, okay.
And the nickel, shiny silver-looking part is the asshole, the anus. And both of them protected by Venus and Mother Superior, who are the rim.
So, do you think what happened earlier today with the RCMP?
You're drifting off always.
I don't know. I don't know my phone. I'm talking clearly, I think, but
get a new battery, Jared.
Maybe I need a new phone. Do you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened today earlier with the RCMP? Do you think that's going to go anywhere?
Yesterday that was.
Oh, yesterday. Sorry, yesterday.
Well, they suggested that they'll be back because they said not yet or something to that effect when they were responding to my question, did you come to arrest me? And since they admitted that the reason for coming was false, that I hadn't threatened anybody, there should be no reason to come back and arrest me later. But, policemen are not on our side.
Yeah.
They are policemen because they have lived many lives as policemen and are fully on automatic pilot.
Exactly.
They don't do any original thinking. They are linked by radio to the headquarters, and before they are allowed to do anything, they must always check in and wait for backups if they're told to, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, Glenn, I've been going in and out of court. I mean, I just went to court like a week ago. Got arrested not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
All for license, all for driving.
You keep drifting again.
All for my license, I'm saying. All because of, have a suspended license. I'm getting a lot of shit for it.
They are there to protect the interests of the system.
Yeah.
And they basically do criminal activities on behalf of the system, and they get paid through promotion and raises.
Yeah.
I remember my lawyer, who formerly in his first life was a staff sergeant in charge of the Special Federal Investigations Unit of the RCMP, and their job was to investigate politicians.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the toughest job he had in that unit was to find somebody who was an investigator, who wanted to investigate. They were all too busy kissing the ass of their superiors.
I mean,
those were basically his words.
But these guys are investigating.
I may be paraphrasing because I don't think he would have used the ass.
But these guys that are investigating politicians, though, come on, this is not a real investigation.
No, they don't investigate. As a matter of fact, they have to swear a new oath when they become bodyguards to important politicians, and that oath says that should they come upon evidence of criminal activity, it must in fact be returned to the owner without any other action taking place. And I had one policeman tell me one day on Parliament Hill that he was assigned to the protection of a cabinet minister, and saw him get out of a car to go into the House of Commons, and he forgot an envelope on the back seat of the vehicle he was in. So the cop picked it up, looked inside, and found what he described as clear evidence of criminal activity. And he said he took it to his superior, and his superior scolded him, sealed the envelope, put it into another envelope, and sealed it, and told him to bring it back.
I guess that's pretty clear whose side they're on.
Yeah. In Ogdensburg, which has a bridge that crosses between the U.S. and Canada, they claim that they're there to protect each country from criminals from the other side. But yet, the people who are protecting the border are themselves doing criminal activity. Because I went down to the border and I stopped in at a restaurant near the border.
How long ago was this?
That was a couple of months ago. And I spoke to the owner, and he said, well, why don't you bring her across? I said, well, it's not a matter of simply bringing her across, is that she has work to do once she gets across, so she can't be hidden anywhere. She's going to be in the public domain, and that means that she could be arrested. And that wouldn't do anybody any good. He said, you know, there are always things that can be arranged. And he said, you know, I was once standing outside of the restaurant, and I got a phone call from a guy I know who is border guard on the other side, and he said to me that another border guard was coming to my restaurant. When he got there, asked him for his keys to his car. When he saw the car drive into the parking lot, he went over and he said, give me the keys to your car. And the guy said, what do you mean, give you the keys? He said, I've got so-and-so on the phone, and he said to tell you to give me the keys to your car. And he gave him the keys, and the guy said, I went to the trunk, opened it up, and in the trunk was a pistol. The border guard had just brought a gun from the U.S. into Canada, which is a crime. And the guy on the phone said, have you got the gun now? And he said, yeah. He says, go to such and such an address and give it to the guy there. And he went, and the guy had a place by the seaway, and he had a boat there. So he gave him the gun, and the guy got into his boat and went out to the middle of the water where there's a buoy there. And the other guy who was on the phone came across from the other side and took the gun and brought it back to the U.S. so that the guy that had crossed the border with the gun would not get into trouble. So when it comes to their own security, they don't seem to mind criminal activity. But if someone wants to come to Canada to help the Canadian Institute for Political Integrity, they seem to find reason for not letting them cross the border.
Yep.
And if that happens to be my wife, they extend that reason to a year. So that's what we're dealing with. Until the police and the border guards realize that, in fact, they are all on automatic pilot and they're not doing any of their own thinking, and they're allowing criminal activity to take place, then we can't expect any different than to have, like the policeman that came and accused Tom of having an accident, bumping bumpers with the car behind him at the bank. That basic event, which basically, if it happened, there was absolutely no witness and no damage done, but in fact has cost the Institute approximately $200 more per month in insurance fees for the last year and a half. So the cop that pulled off the crime of reporting falsely that there had been an accident was obviously doing it on orders from some higher up, and obviously would have received some reward for doing it, whether promotion or a bonus. And the group, SIU or whatever they want to call the unit who's supposed to investigate, did not investigate, and the oversight committee did not oversee. And when the complaint was filed, they refused to investigate and said simply they would reread the reports of the police. And then they wrote to me that having read the report of the police, they agreed with it, and therefore the case was closed with no further action to be taken. So you can imagine if the mafia and the police operate in the same way. The mafia would say, I didn't do what he says I did, even though he's got 2 slugs in the middle of his forehead or whatever. The police would say, oh, okay, thank you. Have a good day. Bye. That's what we're living with.
Well, most people wouldn't probably even recognize a criminal activity.
No, because most people are on automatic pilot. And that's why it's a good thing that they are on automatic pilot, because if there are 13 people with a functioning brain, they'll be able to work without interference. Because these people won't want to be involved in anything like curing the system. So what's bad in one sense is good in another sense, is that it gives you distance a bit,
Yeah, that sure does for me. Like, I have a lot of time to just kind of research.
And that's how you get to research and find out things that you couldn't find out otherwise. And that's a benefit that I've gained from having Jennifer basically locked up in a ghost town called Ogdensburg.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of similar, like situated in a way, because I haven't been going out or anything. I just go to work, come back, do my research. Really, I mean, I can't go anywhere. I can't drive. My license is. So I'm just.
In any event, they have an opportunity now, by having spoken to me before a cataclysmic event occurs here, like is happening in the Maritimes and in Europe and in Los Angeles. But before the real stuff happens, they've now at least spoken to me. They've seen the display. They've seen the connection to the mailings that I've sent out. They asked me to refrain from sending any more. I told them absolutely not. I will not refrain from yelling fire when there's a fire.
Yeah.
So they left, and when it does happen, they'll at least know for certain that they knew and did nothing about it.
So they have people who specialize in, I guess you could say breaking codes or whatever, trying to read a code. So you could work with those, I guess, collaborate.
If they ever did what they should be doing,
Yeah.
The border guards have an opportunity now that they've spoken to me and spoken to Jenny over the last week or so, to reverse the decision that was made to keep her out of the country. The government has an opportunity to make amends to her. certainly there is a shortage, an articulated shortage by the Ministry of Citizenship and Immigration of nurses, qualified nurses in Canada, and especially those nurses dealing with geriatrics and mental illness, and that's her specialty. And surely, if I was in charge, I'd appoint her the equivalent of a chaplain to the Parliament buildings, because that's where most of the crazies are basically located, is in charge. If they set that up as a sanitarium instead of a Parliament building, it would probably serve a better purpose. Leave the management of the country to professional managers who, if they failed to do the job at their review, can be fired and replaced with another professional manager. Don't need politically appointed people to run a government. They are all prone to accepting bribes and kickbacks.
That's why
they don't have to worry about being thrown out for 4 or 5 years.
It's almost as if, these people with these traits, kind of like when they're like vetted, and they look to see if they have those type of traits, and then they say, okay, you're good for the job. You're bribable. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they appoint deputy ministers to manage each department, but those deputy ministers don't have to answer to the bad management aspect of things, because they're expected to manage badly so that the money can be siphoned out of the department, instead of getting managers whose task it is to manage the department properly. Now, what is about to happen is there's going to be a destruction of the Canadian side of the border first, and that would mean that water will kill a number of people and radon will cause cancer when directed at Ottawa, and all the signs are that air currents leading to Ottawa will be filled with radon gas. As a matter of fact, there was a guy on TV already claiming that in Chelsea, just north of Ottawa, they measured the radon gas coming off of the water in his tap. Comes from underground, and it's 8 times the acceptable level. Radon particles in the air, which basically suggests it's capable of causing cancer, mostly lung cancer.
So it started already.
So everything is being set up to kill a number of bureaucrats in Ottawa to make room for the replacements that will come when the peninsula of Michigan breaks and the water basically flushes all the way down the big toilet to Flushing, New York, and washes Washington.
You've been playing with
I can't hear you.
You've been playing with the government, people in RCMP or these people. But have you ever made any? Because you said, from reading all the posts,
I still can't hear you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to speak right in the phone.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess this phone is all right. I said that you've been playing with, like the RCMP and I guess government people for years now, like
20 years.
20 years.
23 to be exact.
But how about the power structures that are controlling the government, like those?
They're not here.
The
power structure that controls them is ecclesiastic Freemasonry.
And where are they located?
And their agents are priests and nuns, and are mostly in the Vatican and in Asia. So the ones that are here, we have investigated, Jesuits, Franciscans, and the Grey Nuns, and found them to be as guilty as we thought they were. But we can't investigate the Mormons, for example, because they're mostly in Western United States.
Yeah.
Their control mechanism in Utah and Texas. We can't investigate the prelates of Rome, although we are now able to look at people like Cardinal McIntyre, who was in charge of California, first cardinal appointed west of the Mississippi, and his role in all of the activity over there. We're starting to get into that aspect of things. McIntyre, by the way, translates to the son of Tyre, and Tyre was Lebanon in the days of the building of Solomon's temple. So it all goes back to the Middle East. The ruse is out of Jerusalem, but it's a ruse from Persia using Esther to take over Persia on behalf of the system run by Jordanians, basically, because they are the Judean priesthood, whereas Israelis are just the pawns in the game, the throwaways.
Yeah, Glenn, I'm seeing what you're talking about, because I get like a little bits and pieces, from looking at all the information and then seeing how it kind of, first you get an overstanding, but then seeing how it kind of comes together and it tells you something else too.
There is an advantage to having contact with the cell, who basically are giving hints of being able to operate in a fifth and sixth dimension, and that's like having an out-of-body experience, and you're watching actual events from up above and seeing even yourself operating. So that's a link that we're looking closely at, because it will, in fact, give the unified theory of the universe.
Now, do you think the original people, that's how they saw things?
Yeah, the original people knew these things, and it all comes down to the symbology of the birth dance, danced by hermaphroditic, androgynous women who had to teach their clones the past and what their role would be in the present and the future. So it comes down to performing art rather than language, because language simply confuses the picture, because everybody has a different interpretation of the meaning of words, as we saw yesterday by the visit of the RCMP. So they take a warning to be a threat. So we got to get away from words and back into symbols.
But didn't you get a point across yesterday?
Birth dance is the original.
Yeah, you got a point. It seemed that to me, from what you said, that you seem to have gotten a point out to them by just using symbols.
Any event, Jared, I'm late for getting in touch with Jenny, so I'm going to have to leave you now.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask you, will you be able to have a conference call next week?
When?
Next Saturday, I guess.
Next Saturday is New Year's Day.
Is it? Oh.
Yeah. And the Saturday after that is my birthday.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah.
What do you want for your birthday, Glenn?
I want my wife to be here.
Yeah. Oh. I don't know how.
That's all I want in life, is that at least I be left alone and not basically interfere with my private life or my wife's private life more than mine. She's basically in exile from where she's from and not allowed to go where she's going to. Is surrounded by ecclesiastics, which is enough to drive anybody crazy. That's all I want. For Christmas, for New Year's, for my birthday, for the world, that we be allowed to live out our old age.
Yeah. Well,
but I don't plan to do it quietly. I plan to make certain that if an event is known, it's going to be spoken about. As a matter of fact, yesterday, when I had Jennifer on the phone, I said, should they arrest me while they're here, I want you to call Jared and have him put a statement on his site, because that'll give a wider coverage than my email, that they have taken that step. But because of what they did and said, it turned out that it wasn't necessary. So you may be playing a bigger role even from where you are. And you should recall the statement, they also serve who only sit and wait.
I'm Miss Milton.
Gotta go now.
All right.
Bye for now.
Okay, bye.